Welcome to the Freedom Driven Landscaper podcast brought to you by the Lucrative Landscaping book. Carita, I'm really happy to be speaking with you today. Would you please tell me a little bit about your business, where it is today, and the story of your journey to building it?
Hey. So, the name of my business is Green Magic Landscape. We are located along the Gulf Coast in Mobile, Alabama. So, two fun facts about Mobile, Alabama. One, we're the birthplace of Mardi Gras. It's not New Orleans. And two, it is the rainiest city in the United States, and we just happen to own a landscape company. So go figure.
Okay, good.
Um, So we are located in Mobile, Alabama, right smack dab in the middle of the Gulf Coast in Hurricane Central. We have been operating for 7 years. April made 7 years that we been in operation, and it is a partnered business, partnered by my handsome husband and myself. Started April 2016, and we service residential, commercial, municipalities, and government entities along the Gulf Coast region. Um, we started this company as a love of my husband. He's been in the green industry since he was 8 years old. Story behind that is his grandfather sadly was diagnosed with cancer and had to retire from an international paper company located here in Mobile. And when he retired, he just couldn't keep still. And so he had a lawn business where he would go and cut the Catholic cemeteries and some other residents and church members, and my husband was the first grandchild on both sides of the family. So you can say he was forcefully recruited at 8 years old to help his grandfather service properties on the weekends or during the summer. And as my husband kept with it, he just developed a love for it. Worked at a couple of other landscaping companies to sharpen his skills before he decided to come out and take a chance on himself and try it on his own.
Wow. And were you guys together when he first started it on his own?
So yes, I think I gave him the nudge and the push.
Okay.
I'm very so much a pusher in nature and a motivator. But I did give him the nudge and the confidence that he needed to go ahead and start it April of 2016. And we have been trucking ever since.
Wow. And so what was that like getting started at first? Was it easier or harder? How was it?
It was a lot of things that we didn't know. It was a lot of things that we weren't privy to. However, the Mobile ecosystem within the city of Mobile is a strong um ecosystem for entrepreneurship, and there are a lot of resources out there available for any small business, but especially minority businesses as a whole. Um, so we had an opportunity to learn to join the Mobile Chamber, which provides a lot of resources, and they partner with a lot of other organizations, colleges, and universities to make sure that small business owners like myself have the resources that we need to propel our business forward. So we've had an opportunity to work with a lot of the people that partner with the chamber, being that the chamber in the city of Mobile is the economic arm within the city, and through numerous mentorship programs, some administered um, with the Small Business Development Center, some administered through nonprofits, through the local colleges and universities. Um, we've also had an opportunity to um, participate in the 100, 10,000 small businesses, Goldman Sachs. We were able to graduate in May. And so we've been very blessed in the sentiment of having some great people centered around us as we were going through our journey, but also industry specific. We've had opportunities to um, join the National Association of Landscape Professionals, NALP, which I'm sure a lot of your people are associated with. I spoke last year at the Lawn and Landscape Tech Conference. Last year it was in Scottsdale, Arizona. This year it's going to be in Vegas, which I'm super excited about. So just knowing the right resources to tap into and being blessed enough to have some great people be a part of our path to success.
Nice. Anybody who's listened to me before is going to know that I always go super specific and tactical on all this stuff. So out of all that help that you had, or and resources and contacts, is there anything in particular that comes to mind that really moved the needle? Was there a contact, or was there somebody in particular, or was there something that you learned along the way? Just trying to dig into what you got actually out of all of this exposure. What comes to mind there?
So, a lot of great resources came from those organizations that I just stated, but a lot of our support came from the Small Business Development Center, which typically there's a small business development center in every city, every, county. In some states, they kind of have them coupled into regions. So you'll have to get with your state representative to figure that out. But they help you with business plans. They help you with budgeting, estimating. If it's something that they can't do in house, they have a Rolodex of people that you can partner with. For example, if you need an accountant, they have people that they can introduce you to if you need whatever you need in your business. Um, someone can help you. And so I think part of being a business owner is the anxiety of it all. What do I do? Who do I talk to? Who do I know? Who does this person know? And so through those channels, we've been able to make some great connections, expanding our network, but also we've been able to do a lot of business with those same exact people that we're building relationships with.
And, uh, getting clients as well as having advice and recommendation. Yeah. So were there any people in particular that stick out to you that really made a difference in your business?
Some of them are industry specific, and then some of them are just rock star women in business. So first and foremost, I am an absolute sucker for husband and wife businesses just because we are a couple in business and I realize, that it never cuts off. You have to be business partners, you have to be homemates, you have to be parents and make all of these decisions personally and professionally. So, I've had an opportunity to meet some great couple in business. And then I've had some great individuals that I met that said, "Hey, you can bounce some ideas off of me." And I would absolutely tell you, that's probably not a good idea. Or, hey, I did that 30 years ago and I made the biggest decision. And so it's great to talk to somebody, especially in your same industry, that, started 30 years ago. Well, 30 years ago, we didn't have all of this technology. They probably had advertising in the phone book. Well, we don't even look at a phone book now. You know what I mean? So You get to hear all of the sentiments of the past, but some of those key elements of the past can be tweaked a little differently with technology to work in the same manner. So, um, most of the people that have impacted my life in my business journey are women, just because, I may be struggling with something, a decision that I need to make in business. And because we're natural nurturers, I can go to, one of my business sisters, as I call them, and we can sit down and work the issue out just over coffee or over wine or whatever, cheese, whatever it is. Um, I have a lot of business sisters in the National Association of Business Owners, which I am a member of. And we sit down and we have these coffee girl chats and we just talk about everything. And there's a lot of resolutions and partnerships and opportunities that come out of those valuable conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm somewhat familiar with those kinds of programs. I'm from Canada, and we have pretty similar there as well. The part that I found interesting is that despite them being available, it's possible to not get a lot out of it. You know what I mean? You kind of have to show up. Do you have any
Right.
recommendation for somebody um, to be getting into these groups that you're mentioning in this? Because it's I think that a lot of the time they're held as sort of a class, if that's right. And so you kind of show
Mhm.
up to a session and then people come and people go. And I guess the key really is to be hanging around after the class and making connections with people. Or do you have any recommendations on how to get the most out of that?
Sure. So most of the time when you have a webinar session or an in-person session, they usually have, the networking piece that start maybe 30, 15 minutes, 20 minutes before the event actually starts. And then it is just a free for all on networking as much as you want after the event ends. So typically, I try to show up a little bit earlier to engage with people before the event, and then I try to stay later to work the room and engage with people that I wasn't able to talk to before the event started. Um, the key with everything being involved in these groups is just make sure that whatever group you align with, that it aligns with your mission that you're supposed to join. There's so many um great groups out there. Some of them are catered for women, some of them are for contractors, some are for marketers, some are for, you know, industry specific stuff. But what I usually think about is if I'm joining an organization, what can I bring of value to the organization? And what am I looking for on the other side of it? So am I looking for education? Am I looking for training? Am I looking for mentorship? Am I looking to attend a multitude of different events where I can connect and engage and learn from not only the people in the room, but the subject matter experts that are a part of these events? It's very easy to get lost in trying to join each and everything. And I wouldn't recommend doing that because you're definitely going to experience burnout. I would just say be very, very strategic on what you're trying to accomplish before joining these groups. And most of these groups you can attend a couple of times before you commit to joining the particular group. So kind of test the water and see if it's fitting to what you're looking for. And also, give the organization a chance to vet you and see if you're a good fit for the organization as well.
Yeah, good ideas there. Thanks for that. So in the last 7 years that you've been building the business, how has that been? Has it been a smooth journey or bumps? Or I'm curious to hear about the challenges that you face and how you've overcome them.
Well, when we first started out, we, kind of went back and forth to really determine who we wanted to serve. Um, some of our key targets worked really, really well for us. Some of our targets we broke even. And of course, you don't want to break even, you want to be profitable. So we had to go back to the drawing board and say, hey, we can generate revenue from this, but is it even worth pursuing this particular market? Because it's not really profitable. And so that was maybe the first 15 to 18 months trying to figure that out.
And
Um,
what were the different markets that you were looking at, the different targets?
So when we first started, we were servicing investors and we were primarily doing so we started off in lawn care, even though we're a landscape company. We started off in lawn care because the margins and the barriers to entry are a little bit lower than coming swinging out the gate with landscaping. And plus, we wanted to just test the market for 15 to 18 months to see if it was a scalable brand and could we take it to the next level. So we started with lawn care. And the markets that we were serving were investors, typically houses that were overgrown and needed a cleanup. Um, and like I said, we could generate revenue from it, but a lot of those properties that are overgrown, you really don't know what's under that stuff. And so it caused a lot of equipment issues and just different things that we had to work through. And so just kind of looking at the numbers, we were like, okay, we need to shift gears a little bit. Um, and we did it kind of as a sentiment to say, hey, you know, take care of your community. We all want the grounds to where we service, we live, work, and play to be pleasant. And this was our way of serving our community in that magnitude. Um, we still do take some of those clients on, but honestly, those were people that we actually started with. We're not really in the market to do any of those clients anymore or service any of those clients anymore. But literally, we would do an overgrown property, and the next door neighbors would bring us cakes, pies, give us stuff to bring home to our children. Just because, if you're trying to sell your home and you live next to an eyesore, you're not going to be able to sell it, or you're not going to be able to get what you want for it because the property value um has decreased. Um, so that was the first 15 to 18 months, and then prior to that we started to focus on um certain subdivisions that had HOAs that, you know, the property had to be taken care of because it was a requirement. And then we started on the commercial side servicing people just like us. So I'm an entrepreneur. Sometimes we have to put our property on the schedule to make sure it gets done right because we're doing everybody else's property. Sometimes our property get on the back burner. So our key people that we serve are people that are just like us. They have a small business and they have a commercial location, um, and they have a home in a HOA community. So, that particular market works well for us because 9 times out of 10, we come out with a home, we are servicing that commercial property. And then if we're servicing a good multitude of homes in that particular HOA, when the HOA comes up for rebidding every 1 year or 2 years or whatever frequency it's on, we usually get considered for the HOA as well. So looking at the numbers, it was just a better financial decision for us to tackle the market that way than what we originally set forth to service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say that you're focusing on one market or another, what does that mean? Does that mean a different marketing approach, or how do you differentiate those?
We definitely had to take a different marketing approach. And I didn't realize the marketing approach that we needed to shift until we did our first mentorship program. And so we learned about customer acquisition costs and then we learned customer lifetime value. And those were the two lessons that were just a gold mine for how my mind works and how my brain works. Um, and so we were focused on how many new clients that we could get and the cost margin on that. But what I realized is that we still have to focus on customer acquisition costs, right? Um, because you always want new clients. But if you take care of the clients that you're already servicing and you develop a strategy to service them more often, you can maximize your revenue based on the people that you're already taking great care of. And so that was one of the things in the first mentorship program that I had a chance to participate in. And we just did a deep dive and that we're laser focused on customer lifetime value, your customer acquisition costs. You're gonna always have to spend that amount of money on that. But if you concentrate on taking care of the great people that you're already taking care of, then you can really maximize your efforts.
Yeah, love that. I have about 15 years, 20, 15 years experience in the marketing and customer acquisition side of things. And that's one of the hardest lessons that so many businesses learn is that it's not the cheapest leads don't typically wind up having the highest lifetime values.
Right.
So if
Right.
you're just trying to get the cheapest leads all day long and then wondering why your margins are so thin, it's like that could be it. And so
Right.
rather than trying to have the low hanging fruit all the time, it's like try to get the best fruit, like within your allowable cost. Yeah, that I really like that you made that point. Do you have a way that you think about how you would set a maximum acquisition cost?
So, um, we do a lot of postcard marketing and of course our website and all of that kind of stuff. But we do a lot of postcard marketing and we're able to go in and kind of filter the people that we want to do business with. Also the different um vendor booths that we do within the community. Also, sponsoring a lot of events. We sponsor a couple of events through the Mobile Chamber and some of um other opportunities, that we're approached with. So we basically concentrate on that. Once we get a lead that calls the office, just making sure that we're very transparent on what we can do for that client or what we can't do. Because it's a lot of services that we don't do, and it's a lot of services that we don't want to do. And so just being transparent about what we can do, what we can offer, and also being transparent about the timeline. We're in our peak season. And so we'll get a lot of people that call and say, well, can you be here tomorrow? No, we have a schedule, you know? And so if people really want you to do the work and they really want to choose you to do the work for them, then they'll respect that you have a schedule and they would want to be a part of that schedule. So, um, some of the hugest obstacles that we face in business is trying to be available for everybody, right? So, if a client meant to call me 2 weeks ago, but she has a party on Saturday and today is Friday, we would try to move our whole schedule around to accommodate that person when we just should have said, "Well, I'm sorry, but we already have somebody um booked for that particular time." Um and so, we don't look at it as a loss, we look at it as lessons to help us be better.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about your growth, do you have a particular way that you project that forward, that you estimate, or maybe you're not trying to grow? Maybe I should back up and ask first what the goal is for the company these days, and how you're thinking about growth.
So we absolutely want to grow. We're definitely in growth mode. And how we measure our success is based on the contract and the contract terms. And then we look at that term and see the frequency of the term. So if it's a residential property, are we servicing that client for a year? And how often are we going out to that property? Are we going out every week, every 2 weeks? We don't do every 3 weeks or every month. Um, and just adding on. And then we kind of look at the zip codes. Okay, because route optimization can be a killer, right? How long it takes you to travel from one property to another. So we kind of look at the zip codes and say, okay, we have 25 properties in this particular area. And then we break that zip code down and say, how much revenue do we have coming out of this particular area? Is this an area that we want to continue to grow in? Or do we just maintain what we have and move to a different area? So I'm a sucker for the numbers. I think, the numbers basically tell a story. And so that's kind of how I measure some success. Now, there's been some areas that we've done business in where I'm like, we're good. We don't need to grow anymore in that area. And then we have some areas where we may be servicing close to it and we want to migrate into that area. And so if I want to do a postcard campaign, I would just target that particular area and monitor where the leads are coming from and how many leads we're closing. Um, so for me, I just kind of let the numbers tell the story.
Are there any numbers in particular that you sort of have for, sort of rule of thumb that you're looking for, or benchmarks that you're looking for with the postcard marketing? Uh,
So what I look for on the postcard marketing is what areas we're sending to, how many leads are coming in, how many did we close, and how much revenue did we
mm,
close? Because if I'm spending, I'm just gonna throw a number out there, Chris. If I'm spending $5,000 in a particular area and we just closed 5 leads and each lead is just for maintenance and it's $100 um every 2 weeks, then based on what I spent on what I have coming in, then I know I really don't need to target that area. Now, in a perfect world, each campaign that I do, I try to do a 3-month um time frame on them because you really can't gauge after you try something for 1 month if it's really going to pan out. So my trial and error um frequency is around a 90-day turnaround. I don't know if, that's good or bad. I just know that 90 days is enough time, I feel, for me to be able to gauge whether a campaign is working or not.
I in a campaign in that 90 days, will you send the postcard, to the same property more than once, or is it just a
Yes.
one time?
Yes. So usually we would create a sequence of postcards that we're sending out. Um One of them could consist of maintenance, one of them could consist of, if they need mulch, pine straw, sod or whatever. Um, and so I try a couple of different campaigns in that 90-day time frame and just to see, test the market, if you will, and see what results we get.
Yeah, I think that does make a lot of sense. That's what I've heard as well as a good idea. And that's been my experience too, is uh, if you send a postcard one time, the risk, well, the thing that I learned the hard way, and I did so much door to door a long time ago, door knocking, and then we handed out flyers door to door, and then we used Canada Post to do it, and we hired services, and it was all different results depending on how we did it. But one thing we found was that if it rained the day the postcards went out, nobody ever called. So we were always really trying to avoid rainy days on that. But also because of that, it meant it was pretty important to try and send to try to contact people through our flyers or postcards more than once so that they have a chance to kind of like see you popping up and that. And we wound up switching our strategy to doing I think some people call it like 9 rounds or a strategy like that, where the crew delivers the flyers to the neighbors of your properties to try to help with density. And we started having them drop them off every 3 weeks, and then we started to really feel like the neighbors knew who we were, because we're
Yeah,
always in a box. And then we had we had little lawn signs on all of our properties, like they look just like the
we did the same.
yeah, like the fertilizer and weed control, except without even doing fertilizer and weed control, we'd still put the signs. And yeah, that seemed to really help. Do you have maybe you don't know off the top of your head, but do you have any sort of sense of like how many postcards you need to send to get a client? Or do you have any rough numbers like that?
So ratio of so for every 1,000 that we send, we usually receive maybe between 8 to 10,
Okay.
and we usually will close a good 40% of that. So,
Yeah, good.
uh, not bad numbers at all. Of course, it could always be better, but, I try to send them off in increments of 1,000.
Mhm.
And it's just easier for me to keep up um with the numbers because I'm a spreadsheet type of girl. So plugging in 1,000, I can kind of keep up with the numbers. And of course, I have my girls in the office ask when they get a lead on the phone, how did you hear about us? And they'll say the postcard. But I mean, we do innovative things. Like on our postcard is a QR code. We have QR codes on every one of our trucks. We have QR codes on every one of our company shirts. And so we have a big, huge dump trailer with our stuff all over it and a QR code. So um, what I've seen is that someone could see our truck, see our dump trailer, um, probably see us on social media, um, go to the website, mean to call, but then they'll get a postcard to their door. And so by then they've seen Green Magic Landscape like 4 to 6 times. And so they said on average, if you see something 7 times, that'll trigger you to call or reach out. So um we try
That's
to keep us on the brain.
right, right. Yeah, that's it's I've written about that, some theory around that kind of thing. There's an idea called the mere exposure effect, which says it's funny. It's basically if humans see something enough times, we feel safe around it. It hasn't eaten us the last 6 times, so it's probably not going to eat us on the seventh time. But the funny thing about it is that as soon as we're no longer afraid of it, we actually seem to psychologically or naturally start to like the thing. So just simply by being present for a long enough amount of time without posing any kind of threat, people will begin to like something. So yeah, that mere exposure effect is one thing that's worked really well for that is Facebook remarketing ads. So where you set the targeting to only show the ads to people who've looked at your website or something like that. And because they're so targeted, most of these campaigns, they're about $1 a day or something like that. If anything, we're trying to be careful not to show the ads too many times to people at
Right.
that $1 a day budget, because it can be there's a measurement called frequency, which is the number of times people have seen the ad, and we can get it up into like 15, 16, 17, even at $1. So yeah, that's powerful for staying in front of people while they're buying. So we sort of talked about the first 18 months. You were saying we were figuring out your positioning, and then somewhere along the way, I guess you were starting to figure out, or not positioning, but sort of positioning, but also who you're targeting. And then you were getting into the postcards and that. Are there any other challenges along the way that come to mind that you've overcome on your growth journey?
So, during the chaos of the pandemic, the uncertainty of I think everybody um on Earth or on the planet at that
Yeah.
particular time. Um, During the pandemic, we had a level of uncertainty to where we didn't really know what was going to happen. Luckily, they declared the green industry as an essential service. So you go back to the drawing board in the meeting, you're like, yes, we get
Yeah.
to hang around. We don't get to shut down or anything like that. Um, we actually, our business went into orbit just because everybody was at home. If you don't work in your home and you're gone from your home 8 hours a day, when you're at home, you start to notice certain things that you want to improve and change. And so we had these projects coming basically out of our ears. Um, and we would have people that wanted us to come out and view their property, but they didn't want to get close to us. So we had a lady that we came over to do an estimate, and she was literally screaming out of her window, telling our guys where to look, where she wanted this done, and where she wanted that done. And so we really, during the pandemic days, started to embrace technology. And so we looked out and started partnering with a company that allows you to do project based estimates and kind of use it as a sales tool on your website. We really didn't know how the market was going to respond to it. Absolute best decision that we could have ever made. Um, by using and the company is called Groundwork. Shout out to Jeff Wrigley. Um, Really nice guy. And the Groundwork team has been an exceptional part of our growth. Um, but it allowed us to cut down traffic time, and it allowed us to vet clients and get in front of those type of clients that we wanted to work with. It allowed us to communicate with them more effectively, and it caused us to put more business on the books and to service the clients faster, because we would have to schedule time to go out there and take a look at the property in person. Well, if you cut out that whole process and you can do it with the use of your cell phone on a video, you can get a quote to them faster and you can get to the job and have it completed faster. So the pandemic for us, although it was a level of scarcity at first, it really required us to embrace technology, and it really um caused our business to go into orbit. Now, mind you, the year of the pandemic, 2020, it was a pandemic going on. So everybody was at home. So we had projects coming out of our ears. And then because we are located along the Gulf Coast, we had two major hurricanes that hit within 6 weeks of one another. So we were in go mode for the rest of the year. From March to the end of the year, we were just on the go. And so it was an exceptional year. It's been an exceptional year ever since then. But we embrace technology like nobody's business now, just because, we could be efficient and effective um, doing so.
So how does that tool work? Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So basically, it is a virtual sales tool. Um, and if you think about your cell phone, you can do anything on your cell phone. You can buy a shirt, buy anything that you want. And so basically how it works is it's an app, of course, and they embed the app as a page on your website using their tool. And so when someone goes to your website, there is a couple of questions they answer, which are qualifying questions for the landscaping company. And it could be used for any contractor for that matter. It could be used for a painter, a contractor, a landscaper, whoever it is, just the contractor as a whole. Now, it's primarily used for homeowners because we do a lot of residential um, clients, but you can use it in a commercial setting too. So that link goes on your website. The homeowner goes to the website, fills out qualifying questions, and then the groundwork system sends the homeowner a link to their cell phone. And from their cell phone, they answer two or three other questions. And then with the use of your cell phone, you just go around the property and you're explaining what you need done and the magnitude of what you need done. And then their newest feature has a measurement tool embedded in the link. So it allowed the homeowner to measure the space that they need measured. And so we started using it about 3 years ago, and it absolutely changed. Um, it saves us on fuel, which I'm excited about because I would always joke with my husband and I would say, in peak season, honey, I see more of the back of your head than I do the front of your face. Because every time I see you, you're going instead of coming. Um, and during peak season, I mean, we see each other in passing, other than, when it's time to go to sleep. So it allowed me to see a little bit more of my husband, close some business, and keep us out of traffic. Um, so I like the platform, and we have a great relationship with the groundwork team, and it's become pretty popular in the marketplace. So I recommend it.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, thanks for telling me about that. There's all sorts of considerations with these tools as to whether or not you would rather, have them on the phone where you can develop a relationship with them versus the fear, I guess, with some of these tools is that it makes the relationship less personal and then you have less opportunity to develop a relationship with the prospect. But I like particular the video piece because then you can still have a conversation about what you see in the video. It's not some apps, what they'll do is they'll measure the property size and then spit out a price immediately. I don't know if you use that. And there's almost no interaction between the company and the prospect because it's totally self-serve. My fear with those tools is that it hurts margins because I think a lot of the margins in residential maintenance services come from the relationship between the company and the customer. If there was no relationship, if it's just as trimmed down and high volume and low margin as possible, kind of a McDonald's sort of style, where I don't know I'm not, maybe McDonald's isn't the best example, but you know what I mean? When you don't have people, I think, pay more for the relationship than they do to just get the job done. And so my fear with that tool is that you lose a little bit of the relationship, but that hasn't been the case for you, is what it sounds like.
No, it hadn't been the case at all because the video tool aspect is you can have a conversation the same as if you were on Zoom with a
Oh, so
person.
it's live when they're talking to you. It's not just a recording.
Well, it can't certain aspects of it can be live, and certain aspects of is recorded video.
Okay.
So let's just say somebody sends in a video and I have a question about that video. I can go in and I can record the response and they take a look at that video and then they can respond in another video. So it is a tool that you can make as personable as you want. It's just a virtual quoting option.
That
Now, we do have clients that are not tech savvy, and we do have clients that just rather prefer that we come out, but they've already vetted our company. They've already, they're pretty confident that they're going to do work with us anyway, or they're probably going to give us the opportunity before we go out to the property. So that's fine. Groundwork is just a tool to qualify the prospects that want to do business with your company. Because as we all know, you'll get people that call you and they'll just say, well, what's your price? What's your price? They're shopping, shopping, shopping. And so what groundwork allows um contracting companies to do is to quiet all that noise. Once they go through the qualifying process, you know, you can kind of gauge if this is a client in your price point, or you can kind of gauge if the customer is just trying to shop a price. Also, um, it has caused a lot of situations for us to have an education conversation, because if I have somebody who wants to do a landscaping job and when I take a look at the property, it's a $5,000 job, but they only say, well, I only have $1,500. Well, then can use that as an education moment to say a project at this magnitude is going to be this price point. You are at this price point. So there's a gap there. So then I can go back to the client and they can say, well, you know, can I finance the other part of it? Or can I do it in sections? Or maybe I want to save up and maybe do this next season. And it keeps us from going all the way out there to the property. And this property is a $5,000 job and they just have $1,500. You see what I'm
I
saying? So it's more of a vetting tool um, to kinda quiet out all that extra noise.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And I love the I guess they call that like a asynchronous communication where where you can record a video and send it back, but you don't have to be there live. That's pretty neat for everybody who's so
Yep.
busy these days. Huh. Really cool. Well, I'm going to be respectful of your time and stick to our schedule here. But before we head out, it doesn't have to be anything earth shattering or anything, but were there any last ideas that you'd like to share with anybody listening before we close this off?
You can only be as successful as the people you allow in your circle, so choose wisely.
I love it. That no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's a there's a lot in that sentence that we could have a whole conversation about what that means. But no, yeah, thank you very much for speaking with me today. It's been really nice, and you've shared a lot of really useful ideas here. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on your platform today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.